Hi guys, Joe Gervin here, Director at LPS Real Estate in Liverpool. Just a little video on the updates on the selective licensing provisions brought in March 2022. I will be referring between some notes here and the licensing conditions which have recently been released. So the content of this video is to explain how we interpret the license conditions that have been released recently, and also our opinion of these conditions. So the first point we're going to look at is the antisocial behaviour provision. So there's a requirement in the conditions as the old selective licensing conditions to insert an antisocial behaviour clause. That's okay. I think most people will already have those in place, to most landlords and agents. There's some tweaks to that, so it's a little bit different to the previous one. So I'd recommend that the antisocial behaviour clause is updated. If there are any antisocial behaviour complaints made during your tenancy from your tenant or occupier, there is a template letter and format of how those antisocial behaviour resolutions should be put in place. Now, my opinion would be that there's a GDPR issue in the original template that's been proposed by the council, because it seems to put a requirement on the landlord and agent to detail the perpetrator. So I think that's wrong, and I think the council will probably update that. But for now, there's a requirement to send out a template letter to the tenant and occupier of the property that you manage or own that's rented to detail how you're going to put in place provisions to deal with antisocial behaviour. So look, I think there will be some changes to that, but for now, there's a template letter which must be used on timescales. Secondly, there's a requirement for windows, locks and keys. That was something that was picked up in the previous term of selective licensing. That's also required. We'd recommend that you put in your tenancy agreement how to deal with window locks and any keys that may be missing or not provided. So we think that that's an important point to put into your AST. There's a requirement for inspections every 6 months. So we know that this isn't always possible due to quiet enjoyment clauses under the tenancy agreement, and also Article 8 for the right to private and family life in the European Court of Human Rights, enshrined in English legislation. As such, the requirement to undertake these inspections, whilst everybody would like to do them, and we'd like to do inspections every 6 months, it's not always possible. So in our opinion, you should caveat your tenancy agreement for the selective licensing points to say that inspections are required minimum every 6 months, but we understand quiet enjoyment and GDPR Article 8 are in force. As such, we have to respect those rights, and we may not always be able to get in. Next point, which has stood out to me, there's a requirement to inform the tenant and occupiers how to deal with waste and bulky goods, etc., and alley gates, and how to get access to alley gates. So in our opinion, your tenancy agreement should detail that and refer to the Liverpool Council website to show things like bulky bobs for bulky waste collection, bin management, days of collection. So we think to get around that is to put in a web link to the council website address. Another point we've noticed from the selective licensing is copies of all documents should be provided to tenants. That's things like gas certificates, a tenancy agreement within 7 days of starting the tenancy, right to rent checks, electrical certificates, EPCs, a copy of the selective licensing, of course, and any other documents which are relevant to the property and detailed in the selective licensing conditions. Here at LPS, we provide tenants with access to 24/7, 365 login to our website, and on that website they've got their own username and password whereby they can go in and see their gas certificate, their EPC, etc. There's also a requirement to provide quarterly rent statements to tenants. Again, LPS provide an access for tenants so that they can log in and see all their rent that they've paid to us throughout their tenure at the property. So for those landlords and agents that maybe aren't up to date with that type of transparency or 24/7 login, we'd recommend that you put in place a provision to send out rental statements to tenants at least quarterly. There's also a requirement to provide maintenance and disrepair updates on how you're going to deal with maintenance and disrepair that a tenant may report. So within 3 days, you need to acknowledge a disrepair element from a tenant, and then within 14 days provide how you're going to resolve it and have it dealt with, if not already resolved with. So our opinion of that is that you need to have in place a robust repair mechanism. So we have a 24/7 login on our website for tenants to report repairs, and that will automatically then send out a response to a tenant. So we will hopefully comply with the landlord conditions regarding the 3 days, and then we have a login facility for our tenants and our landlords, whereby they can monitor the repairs and how third-party contractors are doing repairs, where they're up to, if quotes have come in, and photos and videos and invoices, etc. of that. So again, LPS should be quite compliant on that point. There's a requirement in the licensing conditions about electrical checks, but it doesn't actually state that you have to provide an electrical certificate. So we think the council have maybe made a mistake on that. So we would recommend to all landlords and our clients to make sure that electrical certificates, as per requirements which came in 18 months ago, to put in place electrical certificates for all rental properties. So don't rely on what the conditions say just to do electrical visual inspections, and you have to make sure your electrical certificate is in place. So there's a few things which jump out to me from reading the selective licensing conditions. We think the antisocial behaviour point may have a GDPR issue, so don't be surprised to see that changed. We think that inspections may have an Article 8 of the European Court of Human Rights and quiet enjoyment breach. So we think that the inspections requirement of every 6 months might not be enforceable because of those requirements. And thirdly, we think the council have missed the point that electrical certificates are now compulsory. So finally, on to the cost of the selective licensing. The council have put in place that the licensing will be rolled out March, April 2022, and you've got 3 months to comply. If you comply with your Part 1 application within the 3 months, then you'll get a discount from £550 to around £350. If you go with an agent like LPS, who is regulated by Safe Agent, UK ALA, Association of Letting Agents, and National Landlord Association, and a guild member for Liverpool, then you get a further discount off your your selective licensing application, and you get various other little discounts if you're multi-flat. So if you own a block of flats, or if you've got EPCC or higher, then you can get it right down to about £280, I believe, £250 on some occasions. But in essence, you should be looking at a ballpark figure of around £350 if you get the application in within 3 months, and that's for a 5-year license. So it's going to work out about £65 per annum. So it's not a huge amount, but I think the main thing of this is to avoid the fines, which could be upwards of £30,000 if you haven't put in place the correct application to the council and paperwork to the tenants. One final thing is, if you are instructing an agent like LPS Real Estate to do this for you, make sure that you do the declaration to the agent, confirming that the agent is responsible for all these conditions that are in place from the council. So look, we'll take on that responsibility for you. If you need to speak to me or any of my colleagues at LPS Real Estate here in Liverpool, give us a call on 01512367771, or email us at info@liverpoolpropertysolutions.com. Thanks for listening. I hope it didn't rant too long. Cheers, bye.